Hello everyone. I will be discussing about chapter 35, lesson 1, entitled Infectious Diseases. This is found in your textbook pages 1010 to 1013. Our objectives will be we're going to identify the causes of infectious disease, and as well as we're going to explain how infectious diseases are spread. So let's start with the causes of infectious diseases. What causes infectious disease? These infectious diseases can be caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, single-cell eukaryotes, which are called protista, and some parasites. So when we say infectious diseases, these are disorders in the body caused by microorganisms or pathogens, which I have mentioned, that disrupt the normal body functions or causes infections. So how was infectious disease discovered? During the mid-19th century, Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch established a scientific explanation for infectious disease. Pasteur's and Koch's observations and experiments led them to conclude that infectious diseases are caused by microorganisms. Microorganisms were commonly called germs, so this conclusion was called the germ theory of disease. So what are the agents of diseases? So when we say agents of diseases, these are the ones that cause diseases. So as what you've mentioned, these are the pathogens or microorganisms. So one of which is viruses. Viruses, as we all know, they're non-living particles that replicate by inserting their genetic material into a host cell and taking over many of the host cell's functions. They use the machineries of the host cell to make their own structural parts by either lysogenic or lytic cycle, which we have already discussed in our previous chapters or previous lessons. And of course, coronavirus or COVID-19, which we are all battling nowadays, is also an example of a disease which is caused by viruses. Viruses cause the common cold, influenza, chickenpox, and warts as well. How about bacteria? So bacteria cause disease by breaking down the tissues of an infected organism for food or by releasing toxins that interfere with normal activity in the hosts. Examples of these diseases are streptococcus infections, diphtheria, botulism, and anthrax. Another type of agent of disease are fungi. So different types of fungus may infect the surface of the skin, mouth, throat, fingernails, and toenails. Dangerous infections may spread from the lungs to other organs. The fungus Tritophyton interdigitalis causes athlete's foot, which is found in the picture. And you have there also a picture of a healthy nail and the one with fungal nail infection. Another type of agent of disease are protists. The single-cell eukaryote, like Plasmodium, causes malaria, which we have already discussed in the previous lesson. It is a damaging or a very damaging infectious disease. Another single-cell eukaryote named Trypanosoma brucei feeds off nutrients in its host's blood and causes African sleeping sickness. Both of Plasmodium and Trypanosoma brucei are spread to human insects or to human by insects. Giardia intestinalis causes infection of the digestive tract and is transmitted in infected water. Another agent of disease are the parasitic worms, and people may be infected with these parasitic worms such as tapeworms, hookworms, roundworm, and flatworms. Most parasites that infect humans may enter through the mouth, nose, anus, or skin, and most reside in the intestinal tract where they absorb nutrients from the hosts. So let us now move on to Koch's postulates. or the rules that Robert Koch had developed during his studies of bacteria for identifying the microorganisms that causes a specific disease. Number one rule: the pathogen, in this case the bacteria, must always be found in the body of a sick organism. In the figure, the organism used here is a mouse and should not be found in a healthy one. Second rule: the pathogen must be isolated and grown in the laboratory in pure culture. So on the third procedure, as you can see in the figure, the cultured pathogens are introduced into a healthy host. These pathogens should cause the same disease that have infected the original host. The third procedure, the injected pathogen must be isolated from the second host, and it should be identical to the original pathogen. So those are the four rules of Koch's postulates. Although there are exceptions to these rules, they remain important guidelines for identifying the causes of new and emerging diseases. Let's move on now to the comparison between symbionts and pathogens. Well, I guess pathogens, you are very much familiar with them. So let's start with symbionts. What are they? So there are microorganisms that live and grow in the human body, and they're called symbionts, that are either harmless or actually beneficial. So examples of these are yeast and bacteria. So yeast and bacteria may grow in the mouth and throat without causing trouble. Bacteria in the large intestine as well may help with digestion and produce vitamins. So what's the difference between harmless microorganisms and pathogens that cause disease? So the good guys obtain nutrients, grow, and reproduce without disturbing the normal body functions, whereas the bad guys cause problems in various ways. So we are talking about the good bacteria, which examples of these are the probiotics. They're found in yogurt, food. The bad guys, of course, these are obviously the ones that cause diseases. So some viruses and bacteria directly destroy the cell of their hosts, while other bacteria and single-celled parasites release poisons that kill the host cell or interfere with the normal functions. While the parasitic worms may block blood flow through blood vessels or organs, take up the host's nutrients, or disrupt other body functions. How do diseases spread, or what are the modes of transmission for the diseases? How are infectious diseases spread? Some diseases are spread through coughing, sneezing, physical contact, or exchange of body fluids. Some diseases are spread through contaminated water or food. Still other diseases are spread to humans from infected animals. So we're going to discuss each of these modes of transmission for the infectious diseases. So again, pathogens are often spread by symptoms of disease, such as sneezing, coughing, or diarrhea. In many cases, these symptoms are changes in host behavior that help pathogens spread and infect new hosts. If a virus infects only one host, that virus will die when the host's immune system kills it or when the host dies. For that reason, natural selection favors pathogens with adaptations that help them spread from host to host. So how does coughing, sneezing, and physical contact spread disease? Many bacteria and viruses that infect the nose, throat, or respiratory tract are spread by indirect contact. Yes, and these are through coughing and sneezing. So these releases thousands of tiny droplets that can be inhaled by other people. So those droplets also settle on objects such as doorknobs. If you touch those objects and then touch your mouth or nose, you can transfer the pathogens to a new home. The ability of a flu virus, for example, or a tuberculosis bacterium to cause a host to sneeze or cough is an adaptation that increases transmission of the pathogen from one host to another. Other pathogens, including drug-resistant staphylococci that cause skin infections, can be transferred by almost any kind of body-to-body contact, as you can see in the pictures here, other examples. They can also be transferred by contact with towels or certain kinds of sport equipment or anything that you are sharing or, or shared objects at home or with your friends. So how does exchange of body fluids spread disease? Some pathogens require specific kinds of direct contact to be transmitted from host to host. Other diseases, including certain forms of hepatitis, can be transmitted among users of injected drugs through blood from shared syringes. It may also be sharing of toothbrushes and shaves. HIV can be transmitted through blood or sexual contact. And the known pandemic diseases that we are facing nowadays, which is the COVID-19, is also spread through exchange of body fluids, and it could also be through direct contact and indirect contact, which are coughing and sneezing. Now, contaminated water or food may also spread disease. Many pathogens that infect the digestive tract are spread through water contaminated with feces from infected people or other animals. Contaminated water may be consumed or it may carry pathogens onto fruits or vegetables. If those foods are eaten without being washed thoroughly, infection can result. Bacteria of several kinds are commonly present in seafood and uncooked meat, especially ground meat. If meats and seafood are not stored and cooked properly, how do animals spread disease? Any disease can be transmitted from animals to humans, and these are called zoonoses. Mad cow disease, for example, severe acute respiratory syndrome or SARS, West Nile virus, Lyme disease, Ebola, and bird flu are all zoonoses. Sometimes an animal carries or transfers zoonotic diseases from an animal host to a human host. These carriers are called vectors. They transport the pathogen but usually do not get sick themselves. Examples are mosquitoes, and they can transfer West Nile virus between birds and humans. In other cases, infection may occur when a person is bitten by an infected animal, consumes the meat of an infected animal, or comes in close contact with an infected animal's wastes or secretions. So that's it for the discussion in this lesson on infectious diseases. Let us now summarize the lesson. Changes to body physiology that disrupt normal body functions and are caused by microorganisms are called infectious diseases. This explanation established by Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch and is called the germ theory of disease. Infectious diseases are caused by viruses, bacteria, fungi, protists, and parasitic worms. Disease-causing microorganisms are also called pathogens. Koch also developed a series of rules that helped scientists identify which organism causes a specific disease. These rules are called Koch's postulates. Microorganisms are symbionts that are either harmless or beneficial. Pathogens cause disease by destroying cells, disrupting body functions, or releasing toxins that kill cells or interfere with their normal functions. How does disease spread? Infectious diseases can spread in several ways. Some infectious diseases are spread from person to person through coughing, sneezing, physical contact, or exchange of body fluids. Most infectious diseases are spread through indirect contact, such as pathogens that are carried through the air. These pathogens can be inhaled or they can be picked up from surfaces. Some pathogens are spread by specific kinds of direct contact, such as sexual contact or drug use that involves shared syringes. Some infectious diseases are spread through contaminated water or food. Some infectious diseases spread from animals to humans. Such a disease is called a zoonosis. Often the spread of zoonoses involves vectors, which are disease carriers that usually do not get sick from the pathogen. Let us now answer our questions, or lesson check questions. So I will be pausing for a minute or for a while to give you some time to think of your answers after I've given the question. For our first question, list the types of organisms that can cause disease. So think of your answer now. The correct answer is viruses, bacteria, single-cell eukaryotes, fungi, and parasites. Number 2 question. What are ways or the ways that pathogens can cause disease in their hosts? So again, try to think of your answer. Great. Some viruses and bacteria directly destroy the cells of their host. Other bacteria and single-cell eukaryotes release poisons that kill hosts or interfere with their functions. Now let's move on to number 3 question. What are the ways in which infectious diseases are spread? So what is your answer? The answer is coughing, sneezing, physical contact, exchange of body fluids, contaminated water or food, and infected animals. Our last question, how do vectors contribute to the spread of disease? So again, think of your answer. The answer is vectors spread disease by transporting pathogens from one host to another. So that ends our lesson, our discussion. So thank you for watching and may you have a good day.